Hello and welcome to another Esri Public Safety webinar. This is part of a four-part educational series focused on incident management and incident management team operations, and we certainly want to thank you for spending a few minutes of your day with us. We have some amazing guest speakers that can provide some pretty tactical and strategic approaches to how we manage some of our significant incidents. And a couple of housekeeping issues beforehand. There is a chat feature in the GoToWebinar panel where you can ask questions, so please ask any questions there. We will attempt to answer them during the webinar, but if we run short of time, we will follow up after the webinar and address those questions. There's also two handouts in the GoToWebinar panel that you can access to see some of the resources we're going to discuss today, and there will be a follow-up email with all relevant links and content that you'll receive after the webinar. There are two more webinars that follow this, so please encourage others to register. If you registered for this one, you're already registered for the final two, so that's certainly worth your time. And again, if you have any other professional peers that you feel that are appropriately, or should attend, please forward this to them as well. So we're going to start with introductions, and we are lucky enough today to have several esteemed colleagues of ours that are subject matter experts in the SAR world. And for introductions, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Doherty from FEMA. Paul.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Paul. I started my public safety career in the National Park Service as a National Park Service law enforcement ranger in Yosemite National Park. And that's where I first got exposed to the topic of search and rescue and GIS. I went on to study GIS and search and rescue for my graduate degree, which was a lot of fun. And since then, I've worked in private, public, and nonprofit sector, really to focus on making sure public safety agencies have access to geospatial tools. Right now, I'm working on a new group, a new initiative with Jared called the National Search and Rescue Geospatial Coordination Group, and you'll hear a little bit more about that today. So I'll turn it over to Jared.
Thanks. My name is Jared Doak, and I did my graduate work at the University of Kansas on lost person behavior in Yosemite National Park, and that's where I first met Paul. And I've been a structural firefighter and was also a tech info specialist on Missouri Task Force 1 before moving to Colorado. I'm currently a program manager at NAPSG Foundation, where I support FEMA, as well as do work on a DHS science and technology project titled Technology Innovation for Flood Preparedness and Operations, where we support South Carolina Emergency Response Task Force and the Colorado NCR. We also host a monthly SAR GIS hangout that you're free to join to learn more about what we're doing. Thank you, and over to Fern.
Thanks, Jared. Hi, I'm Fern. I'm Esri's wildland fire specialist, and I work with agencies all around the world on preparing for, responding to, and recovering from wildfire events. I'm also part of our core team on our Esri disaster response program, which you'll hear a little bit more about. I'm Jared's neighbor to the north and live in rural Wyoming. And I guess I will turn it over to Renee.
Thanks, Fern. My name is Renee Bernstein. I'm a solution engineer on the public safety team. I'm located in Esri's DC regional office. I focus a lot on fire solutions and working with fire departments as well as other public safety agencies. I also assist on our disaster response team when incidents occur. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Renee. And I am Mike Cox, your Director of Fire and EMS Solutions for Esri. I come to you after 27 years in a county fire department, Henrico County, Virginia, and retired there as a deputy chief. Was also one of the original program managers for the Central Virginia Incident Management Team. And while we will focus a lot today on incident management operations and specifically some USAR examples, real world examples through the USAR deployments, I want you to focus on the fact that these solutions can be applied to nearly every incident you deal with from an INT perspective. So please, consider beyond just the USAR application, which is amazing, you're getting ready to witness. We will have some excellent solutions as well for an all hazards approach to what we're doing. And when we talk about incident management, we're talking about the process, right? We're talking about the consistent way we approach nearly any kind of response from a type 4 to a type 1. And today we're going to demonstrate how GIS can support nearly every step of that planning P or operational O. And this diagram here actually stole from NAPSIG and Jared's group, but it lays out specifically, tasks that can support all aspects of it, but certainly the operations section is what we'll focus on today. So you'll see some interesting and effective solutions that relate to using that technology to support operations. And when we talk about the technology, we're talking about GIS, and what is GIS? And yes, it is a map, but it's so much more than that. GIS provides us the ability to, measure, analyze, and make decisions based on verified data, and also provide that kind of visual product, those kind of applications to any stakeholder you wish. And you can bring together various data sources, various data types to build your visual products to help support that decision-making effort and the command process, whether it's a unified commander, down to that division group supervisor. By providing them this kind of data, this kind of information, and this visual setting, it supports their development of their situational awareness and helps them make good decisions, again, based on that verified data that you're providing through the technology. And really what we're trying to do is transition from that map on the left to the map on the right. We are still doing hand-drawn maps without a doubt. I'm sure many of us on the call today, are still standing at the back of a battalion vehicle with a dry erase marker. And for that initial attack, that's common practice. But with expanding and complex incidents, we have to be able to move to a technology-based solution that allows us to communicate the specifics of the incident, the hazards, not only to our customers, but the hazards to the personnel that are operating, and the ability to tell your story in the most efficient manner. And GIS is the answer for that. Esri's footprint provides an amazing capability for you to share these products. Currently, in the United States, over 80% of local and state government are already in the platform. It's likely that many of you on the call already have access to some of the capabilities we're getting ready to demonstrate. So if you consider being deployed in an IMT context and going to an area you don't know or you're not familiar with, the ability to use GIS to pull in local data and curated data sets, say from the Living Atlas, to have a better understanding of where you're operating, what are the impacts, and then the population that you're serving, how are they being impacted? So not only what's happening, but where it's happening and who is it happening to. And so these capabilities are deployed worldwide in most federal level government agencies and state level government agencies. So even in our international setting, you see a lot of use, particularly in the use of our world. An example of that would be the Red Cross after the Beirut explosion, using mobile applications to collect data in the field. And the power of that is not only do you gain perspective for your personnel, particularly from that local data or access to the local GIS, but you can share this with anyone. It's device agnostic, doesn't matter what radio system they're on. Essentially, you can build these products, and with a simple link in an email or a text message, you can provide access to these visual products to help those individual components of our incident management team do their job. Our previous webinar focused on the planning section and the situation unit. I encourage you to go back and take a look at that webinar, which is on our webinar page. But again, today we're focusing on operations and how is that applied, throughout the all hazards world. We see it time and time again, regardless of what type of incident it may be, GIS used to help support incident management team, whether it's wildland fire issues or earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes. And again, it doesn't have to be that type 1 incident. We're seeing use in daily operations. You may have a map in your response unit that's likely a GIS map for routing and understanding your day-to-day operational requirements. But certainly when we start having that larger, those type 3, type 2, type 1 incidents, the use of technology is very common, and the incident management team deployment of it is very effective. And so how do we deploy these capabilities? Well, one resource I want you to take a look at is our solutions page. You can go to solutions.arcgs.com. There will be a link in the material so you can access that. But there are solutions that are no additional cost, off the shelf, that you can download and start using today in this IMT context, in this IMT environment. And that can be everything from your field observers collecting data all the way through to recovery and damage assessment in the field, collecting data that's then transmitted to the incident command post or the emergency operations center in near real time. Legacy systems, while effective, would take minutes to hours to get that data back to decision makers. And now we're looking at seconds to get verified data from our human sensors in the field, from those responders in the field, back to the unified command personnel, back to that command post, or back to that emergency operations center. So very effective. So please take a look at our solutions page, and we'll talk about a couple of solutions soon. Another great resource for you is our Living Atlas. So please take a moment after today and look at the Living Atlas. It provides thousands and thousands of data sets, everything from demographics and critical infrastructure to real-time data such as weather, traffic, that you can easily add to your visual products, again, to help support that decision making and provide verified data to your personnel in the field or in the command post. And a disaster response program is available to you. Again, no additional costs. Fern's a primary operator in our disaster response program that provides 24/7 support. So if you have an approaching incident or you're dealing with significant incident-based issues, you can reach out to us 24/7 and get a response very quickly. Everything from guidance and technical support all the way up to, depending on the incident, actually deploying personnel to support you in your command post or in your emergency operations center. And today we're going to focus a lot on the field operations. Obviously, that's what we're talking about, the ops section. And we'll talk a lot about mobile applications that are available to you to collect data in again, that near real time, and also be able to communicate to those field personnel. So when we talk about being able to provide information in that visual format that can help them make decisions, help you focus resources, help you understand where is the greatest impact and where is the greatest need. And again, communicate that with just about anybody you deem appropriate. And the ability to adjust your visual products. We build one map and it may be very tactical, and possibly we're going to share information with elected officials or things of that nature. Then you can actually filter that data and set it up how you deem appropriate to share with others, maybe outside of the IMT. Public information maps are huge, and we'll have a whole webinar on public information and other issues as part of this series. We see more and more implementation of emerging technologies, and I don't want to call UAS emerging technologies because it's pretty well established in the public safety world. But we have solutions and applications that are ready to use to help you process imagery and information from a UAS deployment, and actually support fleet management and flight planning. So site scan and drone to map are two of those applications that if you're operating UAS or interested in integrating UAS data into your visual products, you can take a look at and reach out to us with any questions. Another common application that many of you have seen is our dashboard application. So anybody that's seen the COVID-19 Johns Hopkins dashboard, that's the technology we're discussing here. And it's a way to integrate that data into a visual product that really helps those decision makers. And it's flexible, it's very configurable. You can set it up to filter data as needed by those decision makers, and can really help tell your story based on the operational period needs and even evacuations, public information like I was describing earlier. An excellent way to get that out. Another product we see a lot of use, particularly for briefings, operational briefings, and briefing the public, is our story map application. And you'll see more and more examples of that, I feel like, moving forward for instance, briefs and informational products for the public. One solution, one application, but two specific capabilities I wanted to point out and have you take a look at. The first is our special events solution. Again, these are on our solutions page, no additional costs, but the special event solution was recently released, and it allows you to set up a special incident action plan pretty easily, and it helps you manage multiple special events for a locality. But even as an IMT going to support another agency managing a large special event, you can set up the operational maps. You can identify the areas of responsibility for individual units. You can track personnel down to the device level and see where they are throughout the incident. And these capabilities apply to any kind of response, but this solution is specifically designed for special events. It builds in COVID protection capabilities so you can maintain social distancing and crowd occupancy levels. It also has an amazing after action component where it literally will replay the entire incident. So once your incident's over and you're going into the after action mode of the response, you can actually play back what occurred. Where did the incidents pop up? Where were my personnel when the incident occurred? How did they respond? All that data is saved for your use post-incident. And then we have our GIS mission, which is a new application specific to command and control or incident management of significant events. So what you'll see here is, again, the ability, similar to what I was discussing earlier, the ability to develop those incident action plans and the mapping related to the IAP, track personnel. This allows you to maintain communications, in a disconnected environment, peer-to-peer communications, whether it's a mesh net or something along those lines, and it really is, designed to function in some of our most austere environments where you may not have connectivity on a regular basis. So very effective. And if you'd like to see an additional demo on this or any of these solutions, please reach out to us after the webinar. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, because we're going to start to focus on these field mobile applications, which again, to have our responders be able to be human sensors for us, and not just field observers, but operators as well, and be able to send that data back to the command post in near real time, or for us to be able to push that data and information out to those boots on the ground in near real time can really support that. So Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, just get the slides working here. All right, thanks a lot, Mike. I want to start today with just giving us some context for the real world problem. Today, we'll be talking about field data and situational awareness for urban search and rescue. So first off, let's talk a little bit about the who. So in urban search and rescue, or as I'll say, USAR, it's a type of technical rescue operation that involves the location, extrication, and initial medical stabilization of victims trapped in an urban area. In the United States, we typically call these teams task forces. Task forces are comprised of first responders from fire, law enforcement, and civilian specialists like doctors and structural engineers. But for the most part, these men and women typically have little or no GIS experience, but I can tell you they generally love maps, so they need our help. In the United States, there's a total of 28 FEMA USAR task forces, but in addition, there are many state, local, tribal, and territorial teams, some of which are members of what we call the State Urban Search and Rescue Alliance, or SUSAR. USAR is really considered a multi-hazard discipline. It may be needed for a variety of different incidents like earthquakes, cyclones, storms, tornadoes, floods, really you name it. They also end up playing a critical role in initial damage assessments, which is extremely relevant to emergency management and response and recovery. They're often the first boats or boots on the ground, and that's really important. So when it comes to wide area search, there were some best practices established a long time ago involving the use of GPS. This GPS method was called iron sights, and it involved the use of 24 standard icons, track logs, and some polygon area types used for mapping out search segments and operational areas. When we started taking a look at this problem, we found that these were good standards or best practices to start from. Here's an example of a search type data dictionary. Something like a hasty search is a fast-paced but methodical search of the area. We might collect some limited details in the field, and probably like 1 minute per structure if all goes well. But these different search types can vary and become much more detailed, all the way out to something like a secondary high coverage search, which is an exhaustive search of every room and void space in a building or structure. For a lot of hurricane deployments, we do a lot of hasty search, and during that process, we're doing rapid damage assessment, and that plays a big role in emergency management, like we talked about before. So these were standard naming conventions for search types that were typically recorded as GPS track logs. So this approach worked really well for a number of years. As incidents grow more and more complex, we face some challenges. So number one, collecting field data. It needs to be really simple, fast, and real time. The old way of doing this required about a 24-hour delay in data reporting because we had to get the data off the GPSs and compiled. It also required some technical expertise in the field to get the data off of there, to get it downloaded, compiled, and shared. Situational awareness was really difficult to ascertain, especially at a tactical and strategic or even operational level, because there was that 24-hour lag. And it also lacked the ability to really map out search areas and lean forward and generate search analytics to answer key questions like how many buildings are impacted and how many remain to be searched. The other big challenge was, we hear the word COP, Common Operating Picture or Common Operating Platform, a lot in public safety, with so many teams on an incident generating KML files and spreadsheets, and with limited interagency coordination, it was nearly impossible to create an interagency or even an intra-agency common operating picture using these old protocols. So for increasingly complex disasters like Hurricane Harvey, which played a really critical role in pushing us to the next level, the technology really wasn't meeting the needs and there was limited geospatial coordination. So to sum it up, this was a big, multifaceted challenge involving people, processes, technology, and unlike wildland fire, almost no funding to support geospatial tools. So this is a big challenge. And so we formed a strong team. A fellowship was born and the challenge was accepted. So starting with Hurricane Harvey and Irma in 2017, a working group formed between members of task forces across the country from the FEMA USAR system, SUSAR, NAPSG Foundation, and the International Association of Fire Chiefs, or IFC, and especially Jeff Doolan and TJ Lyon, who worked so hard coming out of Hurricane Harvey to get all of this kickstarted. So collectively, this group has worked to adopt the existing standards, but also leap forward with available commercial off-the-shelf technology. As they say, the only thing firefighters hate more than change is the way things are now. So we really have to meet in the middle and find that balance between what they've already been trained on and what's going to help them do their jobs better in the future. So it's been no easy task, and this is just a good opportunity to thank all those involved who've really worked tirelessly from all these organizations and continue to do so today. Let's talk a little bit about the technology. The templates and tools we developed really started with a foundational data model, and that's really important. We need to have a common location language. So we adopted the old iron sight symbols and terminology, but also began to slowly adapt them to the growing mission requirements and the technology that's available to us today. We used sort of agile development and a feedback loop to refine the approach to where we are today. We do primarily use ArcGIS Online for scalable and interoperable hosting of maps, apps, and data. We have to work between agencies quite a bit, and we found this to be the right platform for us. Today, Jared will show you some of the specific app configurations we're using this year, but it's important to note before we dive into the tech that this will continue to evolve and change. It's the real world challenges that drive the solution, and that's probably best conveyed with a short demonstration and later even a chance for you to get hands-on yourself. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jared for a short demonstration, and I'll do so here on the next slide.
Thank you, Paul.
All yours, Jared.
Thanks. So this season, our focus is on simplifying everything for the end users. We created a deployment page built with ArcGIS Experience Builder to facilitate access to training materials, field applications, web applications, and dashboards. And here we have the NAPSG USAR sandbox, which duplicates the environment used by federal USAR teams during deployment. And depending on your role, you'll be guided to the applications that you'll most likely be using. For example, field users will be directed to the battle card to sign in to gain access. Tech info specialists on a task force would be guided to the tactical dashboard, where they'll be able to see what is happening at an operational level. And someone at the incident support team would be sent to the strategic dashboard to get an overall big picture view of the incident. And these links can also be found at the top to facilitate switching between applications easily. And here at the bottom, we added a section for additional links and training resources. So for those conducting operations in the field, they'd first go to the battle card tab. And this year, our primary application is Quick Capture. It's an easy to use app that inexperienced SAR personnel can get up and running with in just a few minutes. And for USAR, Quick Capture is used to create track logs as well as drop waypoints during recon and hasty and rapid searches. And I'll show in a minute how we're also using it to link out to Survey 123 for more detailed data collection and field maps for situational awareness. I'd also like to note that we have a series of newly created training videos here at the bottom that you can go into more detail on the configuration and how these applications are set up. So to get started, all you have to do is scan the QR code here to gain access to the Wide Area Search Quick Capture project. And if you don't already have Quick Capture installed on your device, you'll be prompted to install it first. And I'd like to note that we shared all of these projects publicly to facilitate training without logins, but username and password are required for operational systems. The first thing you'll have to do is input your team name. If your team name is not on the list, you can type it in at the bottom, and we recommend keeping naming conventions consistent to make filtering in the dashboards easier later on. First thing you'll notice is this quick capture reference and data dictionary button. This links out to the reference guide where you can use for just-in-time training or to reference if you have any questions. And as with a traditional GPS, you would start your tracks at the beginning of an operation and stop it once you're done. Here I'll start a rapid hasty search, and you can see that it's started because it's flashing and that there's a small red icon in the upper right. And then each of the waypoint categories that Paul described earlier are split up into sections below the track logs. So we have damage assessments with a link to the damage assessment pocket guide from FEMA. We also have human interactions, hazards, and then other and support waypoints. And some waypoints have the ability to add one additional follow-up question, while others you can even add a picture for. Now I'll show how to add a few waypoints. If I click minor for a building with repairable non-structural damage, I can add pertinent comments, but I'll skip these for now. Next, I'll add a shelter in place waypoint. And here I can add a follow-up question with the number of people. And if I accidentally click a button that I didn't mean to, like this survivor detected, I can go ahead after I submit it, I can hit the trash can in the lower right and then hit delete to get rid of that waypoint. Likewise, if I need to move a pin to align it with a building footprint to help a local agency with their initial damage assessment process, I can adjust that location by clicking the pin in the lower right. And here I can move the pin and place it directly on top of a structure that I'm assessing, and then click update to update that location. Finally, we have the ability to link out to other companion applications such as Survey 123 or Field Maps. If I click the button for Survey 123, it'll download and open the version 8 wide area search form where I can add a waypoint and then add additional details. So here I'm going to quickly paste in my favorites for this operation. I'll click Survivor Confirmed, add a quick comment, and then I will confirm that it needs follow-up and that critical to life safety is checked. Now I'll show how the data collected in the field can be viewed in the base of operations. Here we have our USAR tactical dashboard. It is primarily used to monitor search progression and prioritize potential issues by using follow-up status. And the primary audience for this is the planning and operations staff supporting field teams at the tactical level. You'll notice on the left, there's a running list of waypoints with the latest points at the top, so you can see where teams have recently been active. And waypoints highlighted in red are ones that need follow-up action. And you can filter this list to view only those waypoints that need action by clicking the need follow-up filter in the upper right. Additional filtering for the waypoints can be accomplished by opening the slider panel where you can filter by date, team, or squad. And similar to the waypoints, there's a track log list. You can ask teams to stop and submit the tracks at the end of each search segment so you can verify they were searching in the correct areas and didn't miss any structures that may be hard to find in the field. You can also filter by incident. So here's a sample incident we created based on the 2020 Seneca, South Carolina tornado. And after choosing this incident, you can click on the Search Segments tab to see all the search segments within that incident. And to dig a little deeper, you can click on one of the segments to see what its status is, as well as see the total number of waypoints that have been created within that segment, and get an estimated number of buildings within it as well. And this information can be used to help estimate the number of man hours required to complete a search in that search segment. So thank you for allowing us to show you what we've been working on. I'm now going to turn it over to Paul so he can discuss what's next.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jared, for that. I really appreciate the demonstration. A lot to convey in a short amount of time, but what Jared showed you today was the sandbox. So that's actually an environment that you can access yourself for exercises only. And so feel free to check it out, especially the training videos and slides. So let's talk a little bit about what's next for us as a group. So I mentioned there's the National Search and Rescue Geospatial Coordination Group. And this is really an attempt to build a people-first solution. Much like the National Wildfire Coordination Group or National Interagency Fire Center here in the United States, we need to formally engage agencies and encourage them to adopt the standardized approach. We're working together to support a national coordination group, as I mentioned, but we also plan to engage directly with the International Search and Rescue Advisory Group, or INSERAG, who happens to use a really similar system, and we're working on interoperability now. Next, we want to make sure that FEMA's 28 task forces are fully interoperable with state and local teams in this. So for this, we're looking to use ArcGIS Hub and partner collaboration to help centralize or federate field data collection for large-scale disasters, so we have a true common operating platform. This is modeled after the NIFC National Incident Feature Layers approach, which you might have heard about in other webinars. So for those agencies that feel they must host their own platform, we also are working on creating a solution deployment kit to give you a jump start so you can host these tools yourself. But again, encourage you to think about the whole of community approach, especially on large scale disasters like these wildfires in Oregon, as you see on the screen, or Hurricane Laura down in Louisiana. Finally, there's a constant demand to both simplify the experience for the field user, but also grow capability, right? So every time new technology comes out, the firefighters want to get their hands on it. So we're always testing new technology, including things like Jupyter notebooks for pre-populating ICS forms, prototyping workflows for integrating with messaging platforms like Microsoft Teams and other apps like Telegram. We are testing Tracker for more of a real-time last known position of teams. We're investigating ArcGIS Velocity for federating data from multiple agencies, and eventually we'll get our hands on ArcGIS Mission for command and control capabilities. But the key thing is keeping it simple for the field user while growing capability so that we can adapt to these complex incidents. So that's what's next for us. What's next for you, if you're interested in this, especially if you play a role in the urban search and rescue or other search and rescue community, is you can get involved. So you can test out some of these apps in the sandbox with training videos, slides, and access to applications in a no-fault environment. Really, really important when you're using the sandbox, it's not for response. We put a red label on all of our training and sandbox tools, so it should be really clear. But also, if you're a GIS specialist or an ArcGIS Online power user, you'll want to visit the SAR GIS Hub page that Jared's put there for you, hosted by NAPSG Foundation, so you can get some guidance on how this stuff is set up and working behind the scenes. Finally, you can sign up for our ESF 9, Emergency Support Function 9 in Search and Rescue, our interest list. And this is a group that meets once a month on a Hangout call and receives tech updates to maximize our interoperability on incidents, especially going into hurricane season. It's better to get to know each other now, even digitally, than on our first disaster. So that's the whole idea of this community first approach. So I think I'd like to just close with, it's really up to you and your agency to train and exercise, especially if you're intending to respond to large scale disasters. But even better if you can integrate some of these tools into your daily operations. And like many of us say, you want to train like you intend to fight. And I think that's a good note to close on here as we pass it back over to Esri.
Thank you, Paul and Jared, for all of that information. I think the demo was great, and it's so, as you said, Paul, it's so much to try and fit into a small amount of time. The work you've done with the search and rescue community is such a great example that I hope that others look at it, and maybe even if they don't work in the search and rescue area, they can use that as a model for the area that they do work in. So you two showed Survey 123 and Quick Capture. Now we're going to take a look at another mobile application called ArcGIS Field Maps. We've mentioned this a few times. This is a fairly new application, and it's a combination of several apps such as Collector, Explorer, and a few others that are separate and are now combined into this one single app. So there was just an update yesterday. Renee, could you please tell us about some of the features that are new in Field Maps, please?
Yes, thank you, Fern. I am more than happy to be here to talk to you guys today regarding ArcGIS Field Maps. As Fern mentioned, last night we had an update not only to ArcGIS Online, but as well to our ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Field Maps application. I'm really excited to share some of these new enhancements that have been included. What I've done here, this is just a small snippet of what has been included. I'm extremely excited about these, as you can tell. So I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about some of these that really excite me and I think are great enhancements. We're going to start with the smart form improvements across the mobile and web application. So one of the things that we want to take a look at is that, we've improved that intersection, where we want to inspect and data collect. So what you will see when I demo is in ArcGIS Field Maps, you have the ability here when you see the radio buttons that they are a drop down and you get the little black box where it's like your options. We're now making that more of a streamlined look, what you see in the white, where you can, have the little circles and the dot and the names of the choices, excuse me. It's more of a clean look. It's a more thorough flow with it as well. We've also enhanced our map tools and our feature actions. So initially, it was the ability to only edit one item. Now we can edit multiple layers. We can collect different things, allowing, new features to be collected from the location where you are, so we're editing kind of current and future things, but we also have the ability to copy a feature's attributes. So we can take what the attributes are within a current feature and copy those and put them into a brand new feature. But I think if you take anything from this one slide, the biggest key here is that location tracking updates. We've had a licensing change. So ArcGIS Tracker add-on license is now included in your field worker user type. So I'm gonna say that again. Your ArcGIS Tracker add-on license is included in your field worker user type. This is big. This is those field workers that you're sending out into, collect data. They're using field maps. We can track them. We can get their tracks. So not only is it included, but we've enhanced the track lines layer. It used to be that you would see breadcrumbs. Now you're actually going to see the lines of those tracks, as you see in our bottom left-hand corner here. So no longer that breadcrumb trail, you're going to see the actual track. We also have had some field maps web app updates. So some of these include the date picker. We all know applications, when you go to put in a date, gives you the scroll bar where you have to scroll to the year you were born. Been there, done that, doing it all the time. We now have the actual calendar. So you can go onto the calendar, pick your date for the date, whether it's in past or current. You can see here we have, in the image January 2021, but we can go back and we can go to the previous year if you need to update a date in a field. The other really cool feature that we see in the bottom right-hand corner is you can start and stop your tracking by holding down your Field Maps button on your phone. Now, when you hold it down, you're used to seeing this remove app. It's a quick action button. We're not removing the app, but now you have the ability to, as you see here, collect your data and start and stop your tracking. So with those few little updates, I'd love to give you an insight of what Field Maps looks like. And I'm going to start by showing you how it looks on your phone. So here we have my phone with ArcGIS Field Maps. And we've opened it up here and we're going to take a look at what we have. You can see that we have the ability to turn tracks on and off. And we can do it based on time or until we say we're turning it off. I can now go into my actual web map. These are all based off a web map. I'm zooming in to my location. I currently have my night base map on, but I want to change that to the community map, as I want to see the streets. I want to see the building points that are on my map. And now I have the ability to use the add sign, and I can move specifically to the building I'm looking at and say this is affected, damaged, inaccessible, or major damage based on the flooding incident that we are currently inspecting. I have the ability to add in the incident name. Here, I'm putting my name in because I noticed that there's no place for an inspector name. So that's something that I could change down the road. I enter in my inspector ID, and then I can take a look at all the other questions that I want. There's no one there to get the owner or renter information on, but I can look at data in there and historic data from people that know, and we can get, is there insurance information, etc. So I'm just going to fill out a few of these. Now, once I have this information, I can hit the submit button, and it's going to add this point to my map. And you can see it's just processing this all together. So adding those attributes back in my table, now I have my point on my map. Great information, we have this, but how did I build this? So now let's take a look at where we start to create this. And we're going to start by looking at my ArcGIS Online organization, because this is where I start. I'm starting by going into my content, and I'm going to look at my web map. So we can see here I'm using my IMT webinar field maps web map. And now I'm going to go to my app launcher up in the corner, and I'm going to open field maps. By opening this up, it will show me all of my web maps that are available to use to create my application. So I'm going to click on that specific web map. And now we can see I've got my overview, and we're going to go into the contents page. And we can see that it shows me my only editable layer is my residential buildings. So we see what they look like here. And this is that form that we saw in there. We can see that I've grouped them by inspector information, the owner and renter information, as well as the insurance information. All of these fields are just attribution, just like you see on the right. These are attributes that have not been incorporated into my form. So as we saw in the actual field maps, I really didn't use owner and renter information. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this group out. I don't feel like I need it. So I'm going to hit yes, delete. Now it's down to just the inspector information and the insurance information. I can also click on individual attributes and pick things here. So structure insured, this asks me yes or no. So I have the ability to do conditional visibility. So if somebody hit yes, I can say, well, ask them these additional questions. Or if they selected no, I can say move on to another one. I can enable it to go into offline mode by the simple switch of the button at the top. I flip it to the right and it turns it on. I flip it back to the left, then it's back offline and back on. Just to show you how quickly that works, how it's disabled, enabled. I have the list of my content layers. We can see that my editable layers is black, so it shows that my residential buildings are there. I have no reference layers, but I have my base map. So those are what I'm going to see in my application when I'm offline. I can also do a map area. So if I want to go zoom in on that specific area and I want to create a polygon that only when I'm offline or I assign this to a group, this is the only area they can see. I can say create area. I can rename this group 1. And I'm going to say group 1 search area. I can say, well, what kind of level detail do I want to look at? And then I can move my level of detail down to the state and then move from down to the building layer. And then I'm going to draw my polygon in the area where I want this offline area to be. So now I hit save, and this is going to package this up. So you can see it zoomed in and we have it showing as packaging. As soon as it is finished packaging, it will let me know, and then that will be available for offline use. So while that's packaging up, let's take a look at what else other options we have. With our editable features, we're given several different options of how we want to download and update, or if it's a read-only feature, they can download, update, etc. We can see now that my offline is enabled, and we can also see where it's been shared to the organization into 2 specific groups. So now with all of that information here, I'm able to then pass this along to Fern, and then she can work on this offline. So with that, I'm going to pass this along to Fern, and she's going to talk about the offline enablement.
Thank you, Renee. I'm going to jump right in and start using a different map called IMT operations. This map, like the one you just saw Renee working on, was created with a couple of offline areas. There are 2. One is called town, and I've already downloaded that onto my iPad. And so I can click the ... and either remove the area if I'm done with the map, or I can sync. Hillside flooding area is available for download if I'm working in that area. I can also create my own. Now, to go offline, I'm going to turn off Wi-Fi and then open the town map area. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see what has been downloaded. And you see the edge of the map. This is a fairly small area, and it's just of the space that I'm working in that day. So now that I'm offline, I'm not connected to cell, I'm not connected to Wi-Fi, I can do all of the same activities that I could if I was connected. So I can collect data, I can edit data, I can look at what other people have collected. Now, it's not real time, so if someone is out there collecting information at the exact same time, I won't see that until I sync. So I'm going to come back out here and try to do a sync. And I'm going to click on my ... click sync. And well, I forgot to turn Wi-Fi back on, so I need to make sure to turn Wi-Fi back on. And then I should be able to sync successfully. So at that point, any edits or changes that I've made will be shared with everyone else, and any edits that they've made will be shared with me. So next, that's a very, very important piece of working in operations in the field. However, another piece is that not everyone needs to edit. And so Mike has decided to join our team as operations section chief. And I have asked him to use IMT operations view only map. And so with this map, he can make it a favorite, and that'll push that map all the way to the top of his screen so it's easy to find. This map has all of the same data as the previous one, plus some additional layers that might interest him in the work that he's doing. And he can also note that he can add an offline area. That's very important. Offline areas are not restricted to those who are just doing the edits. So now that he's favorited it, it moves up to the top. And see again, he can make an offline area or look at the details. Now, once he opens this map, you notice the big difference is that there's no plus in the bottom right. Otherwise, it's the same. He's still working in field maps. He just has access to a different web map. And so he can explore the map. He can click on one of these features to see what information has been collected about it. And that allows him to have as close to real-time information about what's happening on the ground and what's happening out in the field as possible. This wraps up our demo and what we're sharing with you today. I know we've showed a lot of information. There are quite a few resources that we'll be sending out following and providing some training links. And I'm going to hand it back over to Mike for answering a few questions if we have time. Do we have time, Mike?
I believe we do, Fern, and I want to thank you, first of all, for not allowing me to edit any of those products, because I probably wouldn't have the skill or knowledge and would just screw up whoever was trying to operate.
Protecting my data.
Yeah, very good. See, but that does lend to what we were discussing earlier is you decide who sees what data and what capabilities they have with it. That security is built in, baked into the platform. So, you can decide, again, like she just said, I'm protecting my data. That's a valid statement in that you have maybe hundreds of people accessing it, and you decide who can edit, who can change, and who can just simply view, which still obviously supports decision making. We've gotten a few questions, and one I thought was pretty interesting. I'm going to throw it at Paul, Dr. Doherty. How can we get involved in search and rescue as GIS professionals? So is there any opportunity, maybe if they're not directly tied to incident management team or a local state government, what would be some ways, Paul or Jared, that they could get involved with search and rescue?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you're asking. We can certainly use the help. You know, it depends on the type of search and rescue, but almost every county in the United States has a volunteer search and rescue team, which is focused primarily on like technical rescue and missing persons. And that's always a good opportunity because it's volunteer. You can sign up and tell them how you want to help, and they might need your help with, you know, just basic mapping or archiving incidents and providing geospatial tools. The second way is, you know, find out if you're near one of the 28 FEMA task forces or one of the SUSAR teams, and let them know that you're interested in, they may not even know necessarily what GIS is or what it stands for, but you know, there's a tech info specialist position, which we've been using to help get GIS people onto the teams and bring their skill sets. So those are two ways. I always like to go back to the National Park Service, who does a lot of search and rescue in their areas, and GIS plays a big role in search and rescue in the national park. So those are a couple of the ways, but certainly if you scan that QR code for our interest group before, we'll get you in the loop, and maybe you can do some networking.
Great discussion, Paul. Yeah, certainly follow up, and if anybody has any questions related to that, you can reach out to anybody on the call today, and we can help point you in the right direction if that's required. Next question, I'm going to throw it to Jared or whoever wants to jump in and answer it, Fern or Paul, either one. Using field maps, can I collect point, line, polygons, etc. via GPS, not click and draw? And how does that impact tracker? And actually, anybody, Renee as well. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you off that list. Yeah, maybe Renee, can you jump on that? Can they create point lines and polygons like as they're being tracked in field maps?
So with field maps, you are collecting points. They are currently working to incorporate in polygons and lines, but with tracker being enabled, it will automatically track your line based on your movement if you are the individual that has tracking on it.
Great, excellent. And here's a good one as well. Can you create, just lost it, hang on. Can you create offline calculated values based on intersecting layers, i.e. parcel boundaries? Fern, can you answer that or speak to that? Can you create offline calculated values based on intersecting layers? Or do you need more information to answer that one?
I might need a little bit more information. It sounds like they're putting some automated calculations within the map itself, maybe using Arcade, but without the context, it's a little difficult. But we can reach out and figure out what the details of the question are.
Okay, yeah, we'll certainly follow up after that. Yeah, I apologize, didn't have enough information for that one. And there's a question about drone usage and the ability to map areas with them. We spoke a little bit about that at the beginning of the presentation. You can certainly do that. You can actually, you know, drop symbology while you're using UAS and track lines and that kind of thing. Paul and Jared, have you seen much integration UAS wise with the SAR tool or in those deployments?
Yeah, I think this is Paul here. I think, you know, probably leading the way are local teams that have you know, memorandums of agreement to use drones for local response. On the task force side, typically the national teams are getting there a little late, and there should already be state and local out there with their drones. But I know the International Search and Rescue Advisory Group, INSRAG, and also the New Zealand USAR team are making great strides with the use of drones as part of their air operations, and have really gone beyond just saying we have pilots. They're going all the way out to, you know, what does the end product look like? What's the so what? Why are we using the drone? And what are the decisions we can make by using drones in our operations? So I would look to INSRAG and New Zealand USAR for lots of you know, leadership on that.
Excellent. And also of note, we have Esri's recently went into a partnership with drone responders and AIRT, to associations that support UAS training deployments. And so that might be another source to look at the drone responder site, because they will be providing methods to process imagery and modeling through some Esri applications like site scan and drone to map, and it's going to mimic or actually be the same as the process currently used by the Civil Air Patrol and other federal level agencies to process that data in an appropriate manner and get it into your products as quickly as you can. And Fern, one more for you, and then we'll wrap it up, and we'll follow up with emails to the attendees to catch the rest of these questions. Is there any way to incorporate external sensor feeds into field maps? Any information on that, Fern, you can provide?
So external sensors such as a GPS that's like a little hockey puck, or they're smaller than that these days. Renee, maybe you know, I haven't looked to see if they work yet with field maps. They should. They are incorporated into Survey 123 and Collector as well as Explorer. So I wouldn't see any reason they are not already in field maps. But I'll double check and confirm. And
Great.
On the drone side of things, drones are being used significantly in wildfire, and full motion video and drone to map are both kind of heavily used in wildfire response in some areas of the country.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent point. And again, related to the UAS, I mean, please follow up with Fern or me, and we can point you in the right direction for additional resources with that. Okay, so there's one more. There we go. There's some resources on the screen now. Please, take a look at those. There's some action items we really want you to take a look at. Obviously, the NAVSIG-SAR site, the hub there, for some of the information that Paul and Jared, plus a lot more, presented today. Definitely go to our solutions page. There's a section in our solutions page for multiple industries. So you got a law enforcement section, a fire service section, emergency management. I encourage you to look at all of those. And then the special events solution is there as well. So take a look. There's some training available, esri.com/training, and a lot of that's free. So you can take a look at that. And if you're new to the GIS world, you can really get some good information to help push you in the right direction. Disaster response program we discussed. If you need to talk to Fern, please reach out there. And also the Living Atlas is, again, a great source of data. You don't have any kind of login to browse it. Go to the Living Atlas and take a look, and you'll be amazed at some of the data, some of the capabilities that are provided there to you at no additional cost. And again, this is the second in our 4-part educational series, and there's 2 more available. If you registered for this one, you're automatically registered for the next 2. So we look forward to having you at the next 2, one involving public information and stakeholder engagement. And the last one will be tips and technical resources from our DRP staff, including Fern. So that'll be pretty exciting on how to, on blue sky days, have your capabilities stood up. And certainly, as you have an incident impact or an approaching event of some sort, how you can, again, get those resources or get those capabilities ready for your response and for your incident management teams or personnel. Here's our contact information. So please make note of that. If you have any additional questions or think anything after the webinar, please feel free to reach out. And again, you'll get a lot of resources in the follow-up email. I'd also encourage you to look at the PDF in the handout section of the GoToWebinar dashboard there, or control panel rather, because there's some great information there as well. So again, we want to thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon, and hope you got a lot out of it. There's a lot of information provided, and some of it was very technical related. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to follow up, and we'll be reaching out to anyone that does not have or did not get their questions answered. We'll reach out through email. So again, be safe. Thank you, and have a good day.